There were many people who went into this fight thinking that it was a mismatch and that there was no reason why Terence Crawford should ever be in the ring with Saul Canelo Alvarez. Therefore, many pundits and fans alike were stunned by Bud's dominant, unanimous decision victory to become the only male 3-division undisputed champion in history. In this video, I break down some of the footage from the fight showing where Terence Crawford was able to exploit flaws in Canelo's game plan, flaws I indeed touched on in my prediction video. Let's zoom in and take a closer look. In this sequence, Canelo jumps in and throws a left hook to the body, and Terence Crawford blocks it with his bicep. Additionally, Canelo's lead foot lands inside of Crawford's lead foot as he lands this punch, effectively removing his leverage on the punch and taking steam off of the left hook. This allowed Crawford to be able to absorb this shot with minimal damage. In this sequence, Crawford feints a jab and then takes a slight step forward before extending his arm fully and throwing a full jab into Canelo's face, subtly yet deceptively changing the distance. Canelo then jumps in with his lead foot and throws a lead hook, missing as Terence Crawford steps back with the high guard, allowing the punch to miss Crawford. Then Crawford seemingly tries to throw a jab, but as you notice, Canelo already has his left arm, which he previously threw his hook with, glued to Crawford's lead hand, with leverage keeping Crawford's lead arm from being able to throw whatever punch he was planning to. Crawford then follows up with a rear hook to the head, which then seems to try to pin Canelo or frame Canelo in a spot before coming back with a 3 or a lead hook, as we would call it, with a slight sweeping motion downward, where it seems he was trying to land in the spot where he was framing Canelo's upper body at. And this is yet another example where Canelo loses the battle of foot positioning with the lead foot, and Crawford is able to make him pay for it. It gets interesting at this part because Canelo Alvarez then steps back to reset, and as he looks to go to his right, he gets into the bad habit that has been pointed out in other film review studies, where he crosses over his body with his feet. And before he could bring his rear right foot back over to reset in his stance, Crawford had already thrown a jab in his direction. Crawford circles and then throws another jab, which lands up top on Canelo. And then he goes into the high guard against Crawford. Crawford then throws a third jab, but as he's throwing that jab, he steps outside of Canelo's lead foot yet again, leaving him in perfect position to get leverage on a 4 to the head, followed by a swift 3 to the body, before ending the exchange. But the theme here is the lack of foot presence for Canelo, as well as the awareness of Crawford to be able to take advantage of that, as well as the lack of foot speed, which is why Canelo had to jump in the first place as early as the 4th round. One of the biggest questions coming into this fight, and the reason why many people originally thought that Canelo was going to win by stoppage/massacre, was whether or not Terence Crawford would be able to deal with the power that Canelo Alvarez brings at 168. And by the looks of it, in these clips where Canelo actually was able to hit Crawford flush, it seems as though Crawford didn't have any issues with the power, hence quelling some of the questions that people had in the fight and some of the dog moments. And this is a testament to some of the things that I was saying about Terence Crawford as early as August 2024 with reference to this fight. I said that Terence Crawford is not a small guy like people think he is. People always reference the fight with Mean Machine and Yuriorkis Gamboa, the 2 times where he got visibly shaken by a punch, and tried to equate that with him having an iffy chin. And my counter argument was, 1, he's weight draining down to those classes, And by not only cutting water weight, but having to cut into muscle, which he admitted or alluded to in one of his interviews, that is going to also affect your punch resistance, because the majority of cerebral spinal fluid is made out of water. And if you cut down weight to get to a weight class you're not really naturally supposed to be at, what do you have to cut the most of? Water. So that not only affects your muscles with you being dehydrated, but it affects other systems in the body, including protective mechanisms around the brain, i.e. the cerebral spinal fluid. So quite to the contrary of what people were saying, not only should his punch resistance go up because he now has more fluid to work as a shock absorber around his brain if he does get hit with these hard shots, but now he also has some of the muscle that he was cutting into to make those lower weights, which when you have more musculature around your neck with the supporting muscles, you're going to be able to further reduce any rotational force that will put torque on your neck and reduce the chances of a knockout. In this sequence, we take a look closer at one of Canelo's patented combinations, the 3-2. A check lead 3, followed by a rear cross that he sits down on as a power shot. This is one that he either lands flush or he'll land it on the arms even if you're shelled up. This is a shot that he was able to catch a lot of people with over the past 5 to 10 years. Not only did Crawford react on time with this, but he beat him to the punch. By the time Canelo landed the 3 on the high guard, Bud was already turning to block it while simultaneously countering with his own 2 before Canelo could even get there. And if you look at the second angle, you can see once again the theme of this fight, one that I mentioned would most likely be a deciding factor in this fight: the battle of outside foot positioning. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the key to this fight. Terence Crawford won the game of foot positioning with his lead foot outside of Canelo's as he steps in for a power shot. So what happens as a result of this is not only is he in better position to counter as Canelo's punching or if Canelo misses, but Canelo also doesn't have any leverage on said punches because he doesn't have the proper angle. In this case, he lost to Crawford because Crawford is one of the few fighters who is lethal at punching in between your punches. This exchange in the 9th round is a perfect example, and now I think people may understand better why placement and timing can beat and frustrate a powerful fighter who happens to have slow feet.